Good afternoon, everybody. Let's give a couple minutes to your classmates until they arrive. Okay, good afternoon once again. Can you hear me, or do you have any problem with the voice? Thank you. Perfect. Okay, now let's go to our lecture for today. What we will cover today, the HTTP and the HTTPS. Where we using HTTP and HTTPS? Let's focus first on the HTTP. Where we use that? Well, we use that to communicate through web communications. How usually the webs works? For example, this is my login to the CQ. I want to visit the unit, the TCP principal. So when I open that, here it is. That's come over. What are these ones? What is that? You may say that, oh, that's a web page. Okay, excellent. So we have a website. The website consists of web pages. And what's inside the web pages? So this web page, the one you see it right now on your screen, what it has? Oh, it has text. It has image. It has maybe audio, maybe video. So animations, whatever it is. What we call those ones? Object. We call those items on a web page objects. Different type of object for sure, but at the end of the day, it's object. Are all of them objects? How we get those ones? Well, if you're familiar with Wireshark, yes, maybe. If you're not, let me show you a quick demo. You don't have to do that, but anyway. And I'm gonna go over here. I will try to visit, let's say, HTTP, www, let's go for baidu.com. What you see in my left screen here is what we get in the right screen, in the right part of the screen. So I'm gonna stop that. So what's here? Packets. Okay, what are those packets? I'm not gonna go over the workshop. I know that that's away from your studying this unit, but just to understand the concepts only. So the website over here, I'm trying to you can see that, can this one, let me show you that. You can see something called here. What we try to get. Can you see this one? The get, that's the HTTP. The version is 1.1. That's the carriage and that's the inline. What you want to visit, can you open for me in your own term? www.baidu.com. And we have something about the agent. I'm using Mozilla, that's the browser. Then the accepted language, the encoding, the cookies. If we have cookies, we will cover that in few minutes, what we need the cookies for here. So can you give me that? That's what my computer, when I hit enter, that's what happened exactly. The web browser ask, that's the client, my computer. Send the request to the Baidu server, whatever the Baidu server it is. So it goes over there. Can you get me that? What is the URL? What is the request? www.http://baidu.com. When you see that one, which is 200 OK, that's the code for correct request, which means that you got what you asked for. We have different coding, which we will cover as well. Different coding for different requests. If you got the request correctly, that's 200 OK. If you got errors, if the page has been moved, if the server is not, whatever it is, different codes, which I believe you may be familiar with some of those ones, 404, 301, and so on. But anyway, we will go over those ones. So here it is. That's get. This is the request back. So the same thing. That's the 200 OK. You got everything you want. Then the content, the encoding, going what's the time exactly, and keep going like that with the cookies, which we will discuss that option here, why we need the cookies for. And is that my first time to visit Baidu? No. So they put cookie in my computer? Yes, that's how it is. So finally, we got over here the request in frame whatever and the reply in frame whatever. And this is the HTTP, and this is if you want to see the text. This is the text actually you see here in this page. What you see in the left side here, that's the same as that's the code exactly here. Keep going like that. If you're familiar with that, you can do something like this. You can see actual the code here as well, if you're familiar with that. That's what it is. So whatever we actually see in here, we can see that as well in shape of object, small object. And by the way, here it broken down into smaller object. If you want to, that's that. So for example, you may see here an image. You may see here some part of text only, animation, if we have animation, audio, video, whatever it is, link to that on the server as well. That's one of the areas. Yes. So here is this, since we are in the same page, that is not that required for your for this unit. In big websites, especially the media websites or the news website, which they have thousands of videos, thousands of audios, image, and so on. What they do, they put those objects on different servers. Really, yes. So you will find, for example, CNN, let's say they have when you look over there under CNN.com, don't get me wrong, but you will find video coming from one specific server, not a folder, a server. Then the image the same. Then text may be the same. The same thing. It's all of it fill into your request. So when we request something, it may come from one server, it may come from different servers, but belong to the same URL. Just make sure to understand that concept clearly. So What exactly we using to get those ones? Well, currently we use HTTPS. Mostly whatever you type right now, any over here, you will see that lock. Anything, whatever it is. For example, www, AMB, here it is. As soon as you type anything, you will find here a lock. That lock means that we have security. We call that SSL or TLS, which we will discuss. Okay, what are those ones? Oh, if you want to understand that, we need to go, this is, we call that HTTPS. But to understand that, we need to go to the HTTP without S. At the beginning of the internet, until 1996 or 1997, we used to use a version called HTTP, which is it's okay. The version it's okay. That's usually you pick a data from, let's say, let me just show you here. I want to show you something like here. Let's say something like that. You have a client, and that's the server. You want to have something from the server. Yes. What do you do? Oh, here it is. First, we need to establish connection. Really? Yes. So it's not just to go and go, here it is, that's the object, bring it back. No, it's not. It didn't work like that. So the server, the client with the server, you need to establish connection first based on TCP. So you establish connection. Then after that, they start exchanging the data request. Can you give me that? Okay, it's here. Can you give me this one? Okay, it's here. I finished to close the connection. Really? Yes. That's how it is. That's how it is. Easy as that. So open, transfer, go do the discussion, then close. Open, transfer, then close. Like this. That's how it is. That's HTTP. However, as you can see that there is no security. Anyone can get in the middle here and can intersect the data between both of them. Okay, they come to a solution for that. Don't get me wrong. So they come to some sort of solution, which is based on keys, symmetric and asymmetric. We have a share key. Let's go here. I'm gonna give you my key. You give me yours, and we do like, okay. What about if I don't know the site or the location, which they don't know me? I want to visit, for example, MIT edu. So did I study in MIT? Not yet. Did I whatever? Not yet. Like this. So how they gonna transfer the data to me? So they come to something called asymmetric. Then it become a little bit hassling. So based on publishing public key and keeping private key, and then after that, when you send a data using the public, then we decrypt it with private. Okay, that works. It works. Don't get me wrong. It's working, but not that as professional. So I mean, not that as fast. Professional means it has to be integrity. It has integrity, reliability, and fast. Those three things must be quick. So what they come up with? We come up with something called HTTPS, which is some sort of development of HTTP. The HTTP usually in basic concept based on something like this. You want get a data from a server, you send a request, the server reply back to you. However, before that, you need to establish connection first. So get, send, or request and response. That's it. That's it. So they did two different devices, whatever your devices are. We have a problem. Let's say not a problem. Let's say that's how the HTTP been built on. Something we call that stateless. What is that? Well, easy. As you have seen me, I try to visit, let's say, the Baidu. What is that? That's port 80, HTTP port 80. So here it is. That you will find that on port 80. That's port 80, as you can see that. So, okay, what's happened here? Usually, HTTP work with something called sockets. If you study the TCP sequence acknowledgement and how the segmentations works, usually we have something. If you guys have typed something like that, 192.168, let's say, 10.20, let's say, and then you put column like this, then you put any port number, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say. Those ones, we call that a socket. Socket equal IP address plus port. So if you have IP address plus port, we call that socket. And that's usually what happened on servers. When servers can respond to millions of requests at the same time. So how we do that, or how the server does that, IP address, just only one IP, let's say, can serve, let's say, 65,000 something requests at the same time with different ports. One IP, yes, one IP. So what else? We have something called stateless. HTTP is stateless. What do you mean by stateless? You get to understand. There is stateless and stateful. What the difference? Okay, when you have a protocol, what we call that protocol is a stateless like HTTPS, which means that I visit Baidu. It's open. I transfer the data, close. Done, done. Now I want to visit Baidu again. Did the HTTP remember me? No. In short, the server do not maintain any information about your previous visits. That's it. That's how it is. That's HTTP. So it's stateless. We have other protocol, which is stateful. Stateful means you visit, I keep a record of you. Really? Yes. So you visit a site, visit a page, you visit the resources, we call it resources, whatever it is, you visit that, we keep a track of your visit. And we know that you've been here before, and when and everything. So in short, if you visit and you terminate, and then you come back, yes, we know you. And we know that who you are and everything. We keep information about you. That's the difference between stateless, stateful. HTTP is a stateless protocol, which means that it didn't keep any data about history. Okay, what else? How the HTTP works? Well, HTTP works in what we call it two types or two modes. Something called persistent or non-persistent. What the difference? Easy task. If I have the page, let's say my web page, I have here, these are 5 objects. And here it is. This is me as a client, and I want to get those ones. And I use HTTP. If I use non-persistent, what the HTTP will behave? Oh, it is. Watch this one. Let's open connection. We open connection. Now, let's transfer this object, then close. Okay, done, done. What about the second object? Oh, let's open another connection. Now let's transfer, then terminate. Close the connection. Similar to that, yes. Similar to that, yes. So what is the idea here? For every object, for non-persistent, for every object, we have to open, establish connection, transfer, close, one by one, one by one. That's how it is. That's how it is. So if you have 20 object, you have to do 20 connection establishment and 20 termination. Open, close, terminate. Open, close, that's how it is. What about non-persistent, or I'm sorry, persistent? No, that's persistent is much better. What is that? When you have persistent, what do you do exactly? Oh, let's open a connection, transfer all of them, then terminate the connection. And we have something called RTT, and we calculate that how many RTT away from study here for this unit. But we have a way to calculate all those ones. If I have how many objects, we teach that in other units. However, for now, what you need to keep in mind that when you have a persistence, I can transfer multi-object in one connection. If the HTTP has non-persistent type or mode, we have to open a connection and terminate the same connection for each object. That's it. That's it. Nothing more than that. I put you here an example. Maybe you not find that in your material. So just only to show you that how that may works. Here, for example, we have, I want to visit, that's the client. The client want to visit, for example, mit.edu, whatever the department, whatever the homepage. So that's maybe whatever it is. So here it is. You type the URL, the HTTP in HTTP will send it to the server. The server will accept the connection and send you the reply to your request. This is the confirming the, let's say, the receive the request message. Then we move over here to the HTTP, close the TCP connection, the responding with terminations, and repeat for each object. That's it. That's it. That's the HTTP request message, the one I show you at the beginning. You do not need to go deeper in that unless if you study Wireshark a little bit, but in short, this is how you will see something called GET, and this is the URL you visit, the version of HTTP, that's we call it the carriage, and this is the line fed. Under that, you have the URL, you have the user agent, which is the whatever the you are using as a web browser, accepted language, accepting encoding, something called keep alive, and the connection with keep alive as well. That's the general format of the HTTP request message. However, that's a space, by the way, that's a space, and that's the carriage, and that's the inline. That's a space, space, carriage, inline. However, what we want to focus on, we have something here at the beginning called a method. Method, what is that? That one. Okay, is that always like that? Really? Maybe, maybe not. Where is the white shark? Okay, so what is that here? Let me just show you that. That's it, right? What is that? So get confirmation. What are, do we have something else? Yes, we have different methods. We use it in here. So we have different numbering. What are the method we use? Well, it's easy ones to understand. Get and post. Get, give me, post, here what you got. So get, request, and post reply from the server to the client. Easy at that. Um, what exactly, what is that put? So what is put? What the difference between post and put? Get, I think that's easy. That's, everybody can understand that. Get, can you give me that? That's from the client to the server. Okay, so what about post? Um, post means, like, for example, if you have web page and that web page has like a form, you need to fill the data. So the web page is open, but you need to put a data to send it inside that form. So it's from the client to the server, but you actually something like an updating form, something like. So we call that a post. What about uploading? That's if you want to create a new object. If you want to upload, that's why we actually put it like that. If you want to upload a new object, image, whatever, audio, video, whatever it is, a new object you want to put it onto the server. The head, that's the just only if you request the headers only. The one we usually most use, that's the get. Post usually frequently, and this one frequently as well when you try to upload something specifically into the server. Those are the codes, the most famous 200, and the one which is, I believe, currently, many of you have seen that before in many aspects. Sometimes when you try to search for a page, you get that 404 not found. I believe that I can, since I'm here, let me show you, maybe not. Yeah, something, let me, maybe like that. Oh, it's here, okay. Maybe. So type anything in whatever it is in GitHub, for example, like here, if you want, I have one of my, I want to show you one of my students, but I don't do that. So I can put something like that. Do we have ABC? Okay, like this. So just only if I try to put anything is not exist, it tell me, oh, that page does not exist. Or so what about if you have, if it been moved, what we call permanently moved, 301, 400 bad request, 505, the version is not supported. The famous ones, the 200, okay, and the 404. That's the normal connection from the HTTP. You can see that established connection, request, respond, request, respond, request, respond, and then terminate the connection. Either that's this one look like a persistent one because it has multi one with multi request, What about if I want to have secure one? And that's what we will discuss. However, before we discuss that into the security, I just wanted to remember this one because we will add something to it. Only we will add something to that to make the HTTPS. So before that, do you remember when I showed you that the cookies? Why they put cookies when I try to visit Baidu.com? Because I did visit that site many times before. So what exactly cookies? Maybe you're familiar with, I believe most of you are familiar with that. When you save your login automatically to your model, that's actually based on cookies. So you put username and password for the first time, for example, and then after that you go to the model, straightforward. That's a cookies based on that. Small tiny file, the server you actually visiting, put it in your computer or your browser, or you're actually sometimes in some of those with persistent one, it's stay on the hard. So what's inside the cookie? Cookie, I think you're familiar with that. So if you want to authenticate, if you visit the shopping cart, for example, if you should try to shop or something like that, as soon as you try to shop something, it keep show you right away. Even if you come back later on to continue shopping, you find your cart as it is, whatever it is, the browsing history and everything. So it's actually we it help us when I log in. It's helped me if I try to log in, for example, to Facebook right now. I don't have to, because as soon as I go in, it fill it automatically and everything. The autofill or it's like that. It's everything from the cookie. So authentication, authorization for sure. Um, Shopping help us um, as well. Some of those ones, which is tracking one. So it tracks your activities. Really, yes, whatever you do, and some of those ones are really not just to only track your activity in one server. No, 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 no. It tracks activity on multi servers. So if you visit multi areas, it can actually still track you, and that's the one we call that third party cookie. How it works exactly? But just let me give you an example of that. Um, I put you something here to just make sure that to get that clearly. An example of that is I'm sitting here. I want to visit Amazon, the server. I want to buy something from Amazon, or I just want to browse in Amazon for the first time. As soon as I log in, I try to log in, the server will create what we call it an ID. Actually, the ID is some sort of cookie. That cookie, it will be sent to to the client computer or browser to stay in. Really, that's how it is. So when we try to clear your browser, we have an idea of that. We tell you that clear your browsers. Sometimes when we use Shark, we ask students usually clear the browser, which means that take all of everything from here. So when you visit the server next time, the server try to identify you, it cannot identify you. But different type of cookies. So there are some cookies which you can get rid of it, some of it persistent, which you cannot stay on your hard. But anyway, you try to visit, or the client try to visit Amazon server. The server here will create a unique ID, which is, let's say the number is 1678, small tiny file, sent to you to the browser. It stay in the browser or in the computer itself or the device, and it identify you. Now you keep searching, you keep whatever, you keep, and then you terminate the connection. It's okay. You terminate the connection. Then a day later, the hour later, a month later, you come to the server You come again to visit as soon as you try to log in to Amazon or wherever it is. As soon as you do, the Amazon server will identify the cookie in your device and will identify you. And that cookie usually is not just only a tiny file with that. No, no, no. Server, sometimes they use advanced technique, which is the IP as well, IP addresses. So some of them they do, some of them they don't, but in general, they do. Inside, if you, especially with those ones with security to pay by credit card and whatever, they want to identify your location. So they identify with the IP address as well. But it's a small tiny file sent to your computer or your device, stay in your device, and that's it. Similar with, if you want an example, try to connect to your bank, for example, from a new device, not the normal device you actually connect right now. The first time when you try to connect the device, the bank has to identify you, but actually it's not you, the device you connected from. So they're gonna send you a message and another message and you SMS and all those, the three-factor until the multi-factor until they identify the new device. And we call that adding new device to your security system. So that's how it works. That's how it works in an easy concept. So is that can help? Yes. Can cookie help? Yes, that's true. By the way, it's helping. Is that has a pro? Yep. But did it has cons as well? Oh, that's true. When you save your authentication, everything on those cookies, hacking those cookies, it's gonna put you in a real risk. That's one. Two, tracking the person, tracking your activity on a third party is not professional as well. So it didn't help. When every time I do anything, just try to search for a shoe, let's say. Then later on, 5 minutes later, just to jump into Facebook or wherever, you find all the ads, everything, YouTube, everything about you. That's how it is. So sometimes it's help, sometimes it's not. It depends on what type of cookies you are uh, using. We use cookies for what? Authentication, authorization, shopping cart, user session, which is excellent one. The user session, that's the one which is when you log into the model, for example, if you haven't used the model for 30 minutes or 1 hour, you are terminated and you need to log in again. With the bank, 2 minutes, maximum 3 minutes, and if you didn't move, they kick you out right away from the terminate the connection. We call that session. That's how it is. Yes, we use for that cookies as well. Must be. A lot of challenge around that. The third-party persistence cookies, make sure that I highlight this one, just make sure to understand that. It can be a tracking across multi-servers as well. Up to here, you okay? Up to here, are you okay? Up to here, are you okay? So, we clear? Okay, thank you. Now we will move to, since we mentioned the HTTP, I'm sitting, or you are sitting on CQ campus, and you visiting abc.com. I explained to you before, easy as that. how the DNS works, and it's gonna be recursive. If it's gonna be recursive for forwards, and you actually sending to the local DNS from your computer first to your device, from device to the local DNS, from the local DNS to the root, from the root to the authoritative, to the TLD, from the TLD to the authoritative, whatever. Well, they said that it take around 8 milliseconds to find the URL. In some cases, almost 30 millisecond. That's a lot, by the way, in IT. So another student tried to visit ABC, do the same thing. Another student, like the model, let's say you're visiting the model. So a student wants to visit the model, another one the model, another one the model. That's 30 millisecond, 30 millisecond, 30 millisecond. No, that's a lot. That's really a lot. So what we do, we have something called web cache server, but the real name for it, the one we use, proxy server. Proxy server has many good using site and twisting bad site. Well, let's go over the good side first, because that's the most important for us. What is the idea of the proxy server? The proxy server is like this. User number one, try to visit the abc.com. Okay, so it's if it's not exist, assume that not exist. Okay, so it will go recursive or iterative, and it will get me the abc.com URL and the information about the authoritative server and everything. Right. Now, the idea of that is we need to keep a record in our local server for that one, for the web page or website or the resources or whatever we actually visit in our local, on our local server. We call that the proxy server. You can imagine that if a web server which has entries only of URL and IP's addresses, that's not actually the 100%, but let's say in your case for now, let's say that a server has only inside, just only like that, entries, that's abc.com and the IP address, xyz and the IP address, whatever it is, abc, that's whatever it is. That's it. So what is the idea of that? Faster. So if another student want to visit abc.com, the first visit take around 20 milliseconds. The second user who actually try to visit the site, it will not take even 1 or 2 milliseconds. Really, yes. Why is that? Because we do not have to go. We know the IP address and the authoritative server for the ABC. So do I need to go for iterative? No. Do I need to go for recursive? No as well. So imagine that if you searching for someone or you know the address of that person. So if I know the address, I get it quick. If I don't know the address, I'm going to search. So the web proxy server save us searching. It search you only once at the first time you visit, or when we update. That's another story. When we update that record, because those record, whatever the record we have, it updates every while, once a while. So not every minute or every day. It can be every week or every weeks. But what we try to mention that the web proxy keep a record of all the visited sites URL, even the URL inside the local, the directories you actually visiting in a big company or big corporate inside the intranet, let's say. So what is that? A faster response, very quick response. So instead of taking 20, 30 milliseconds, it take 1 millisecond, sometimes less than 1 millisecond, pretty quick. That's one of the good side of using web proxy. The bad side is we use it for hacker, hide ourselves. Really, yes. Another uh, pros, another advantage of web proxy. We use it as a security, for security as well. The web proxy send my request. I want to visit abc.com. Okay, so I send my request to the web proxy. The web proxy send it to the DNS and give me whatever the information. Did the outside, the ABC, knows me? No, they know the proxy server. So that create a layer of security protection between me as a client and the target. So if they want to come back to me, they come back to the server. What is the server? It's a cache server. So it has nothing. So if someone hack it or someone whatever, nothing. On the proxy, that one, I can change to a fake IP if I want to hack someone. That's one of the problem with the bad use of web proxy. But for here, we are discussing the advantage or the pros of the web cache. The web cache, we use it mostly for faster access to the URL resources. What else? We have gone through the HTTP. The HTTP until 96, whatever it is, with okay. However, some people, they succeed to penetrate. We try to stop them, try to create some level of security, symmetric, asymmetric keys, and so on. Until 96, 97, we start having a new approach called SSL. What is SSL exactly? And by the way, we used to define the HTTP for students. We tell them that all the time. HTTPS, which is the port 443, it work on port 443. So HTTP work on port 80. HTTPS usually work on 443. So we used to mention to students all the time to differentiate between HTTP and HTTPS. Oh, HTTP, add SSL to it, it become HTTPS. We used to mention that. So what is TLS? The new version, the upgrade of SSL. Usually we write it like that, SSL/TLS, to just only show that the TLS is actually the new development of the SSL. Much more secure than SSL. So what is that? Watch this one. This is the HTTP. That's the TCP connection here. And you have what we call it public key. Then we have session. Then we have encryption. Wow, all that. Yes, we do have all that. So we have encryption. Yes. That's the idea of the HTTPS. What is the idea? I want to have secure connections and integrity of the data and reliability of the data when I send, which means that the data hasn't been tampered or changed. Nobody can hack to the data. The data is secure and the data is reliable. We use encryption. We use compression as well. We use sessions. We use something called digital certificates, and it include that something called public key and so on. Okay, so how we do that? Easy. So let me take you to the HTTPS. HTTP, we usually has, you open the TCP, you actually sending requests between both, then we terminate. Over here in that area, no. As soon as you open the connection, we establish what we call it SSL, or the new version TLS, which is a secure version. That's a security version. So what's exactly on the SSL? SSL is a protocol, let's say. Usually job for that to encrypt the data, to keep it safer, sure. That's we understand that. SSL, or the new version of TLS, it use combinations of digital files. We call that digital certificates. Some sort of something called PKI, that's a suite, which is the PKI that's like package, let's say, with like a framework, which is it include tools to manage digital certificate, including keys. Our firm study here, but it's you need to know something like that. Those ones, the encryption, the digital certificate, the PKI, something called SHA algorithm, and MD5, Mac as well. All those combination to provide a security connection between two devices using HTTP plus either SSL or TLS. We have something called the handshaking. I believe that's I may explain that. Hello, hello back. Can we talk? Yes, that's how it is between the client and server. In TCP, we have sequence acknowledgement, away from your study here for now. But the handshaking, hello, that's the client to the server. Hello, hello back. Can we talk? Yes, here is the talk. Done, done. Let's terminate. Terminate, acknowledgement, determination. But all that has to be done in security level. Has to be secure level. We have the new version of that. That's the secure socket layer. That's the, don't get me wrong, that came from the Netscape. If you guys, I believe not, most of you does not know what is that Netscape. It used to be one of the top browser at that time. Now I'm talking about 1998, 2000. And they used to create a lot of development developed by Netscape. Then what we came to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2000, 2002, the TLS started coming. 2006, TLS coming to the market and took over what's in higher level of security, which means that higher algorithm, better algorithm, higher complex algorithm, higher hashing, better digital certificate, better keys, and so on. What using, we're using something called SHA, an HMAC, and MD5. One of the thing here, to do sending, we call it tunneling, but in Cisco, we call it tunneling. I want to send the data from A to B, but how it be secure. What we do in that data? Okay, the first thing is that data is big data. I mean, like more than the MTU. If it's more than MTU, let's break it down. And we call that fragmentation, fragmented. I think we discussed that. So this is more than MTU. So break it down into smaller pieces. That's fragmentation. And each piece, which is fragmented, what we do with that? Here it is. Encryption, then compression, or in compression, then encryption. Really, yes, that's how it is. Each one. And some protocols, we encrypt each one of those fragmented piece, different key. Each packet, each fragmented piece Really, yes. So if you are an expertise and you manage to catch one of those packet and you manage as well to crack the what's in the password, whatever it is. The next one you will not be able to. Why is that? Because it's encrypted with different key, random, different key. One of the top protocol we use that technique we call it IPsec. If you guys familiar with that, IPsec. But that's how usually it is. So it's fragment. By the way, the SSL use something like that, similar to that. You have a data, you break down the data into fragmented pieces. That fragmented piece is either encrypted and compressed, or compressed then encrypted. Then it's been sent. Really, yes, that's how it is. So what else we can include with that? How do I know my data hasn't been changed? Nobody hack it. Okay, no one can hack it. Okay, no problem. But what about if my data passed by electromagnetic signal, EMS, for example, or passed by noise, or a microwave, or anything, or electrical disruption? So passing by, and when I get the data, I'm not sure is that my data or not. What we do, we use something called hashing. Hashing, that's a technique. We use it to make sure that the data hasn't been changed or tampered. TLS use that as well, which is we use something called SHA, MD5, and we have different version of SHA, SHA-1, SHA-2, and so on. But it's highly secure, really highly secure. That's the architect of SSL. I don't want to waste your time with that much, but in term of the connection, yes, SSL can run different type of connections. Can be transit, can be peer-to-peer, can be communication links. What is the session exactly of SSL? Well, it defines some sort of parameters. We didn't explain to you here much, but as I told you, it's involved with keys, digital certificates, hashing, compression, all those together. It's become like an cryptography parameters. That's all those been defined within the SSL architect. I believe this is not, in my opinion, that's not a good the handshaking SSL. So I got you something better, which is can show you a better view. That's the SSL handshake protocol. As you can see, that's the client, that's the server. The phase one establish the connection. Phase 4 terminate the connection. What is phase 2? Oh, this is the server authentication. So what we will exchange here, the one I just mentioned to you, the digital certificate. That digital certificate usually has keys inside, by the way. We call that public key. It has algorithm inside, and so on and so on. So if everything's cool and everything is done, so you send me your certificate, I send you mine. Here it is. It match what I have, and you have what it match me. So we identify each other. That's the idea of digital certificate, by the way, to identify either user, devices, resources, and so on. So how I know that you are the one it's supposed to be. I'm visiting Moodle in cq.edu.au. I know that that's a cq.edu. It's not a fake one. So maybe someone create something like that. That's what we call a digital certificate to identify that, and so on. One last piece here, I believe that's SSL record protocol operation. That's similar to what I just mentioned to you a few minutes ago about that the application data. When we get the data, it's big, we break it down into smaller pieces, fragmentation, then compression, then we add the MAC, which is usually about hashing, the secure hashing protocol, which is to make sure the data hasn't been tampered or changed. And we have something called MD, which is the master digester as well. Then we encrypt that, and then after that, after you encrypt and you do everything, all the certificate you want to make sure the data is highly encrypted, and if it's been tampered, it will be discovered, and so on. So one, reliable; two, highly secure because it's encrypted; three, if it's even been tampered by even electrical signal or something, the receiver will know it has been tampered and it will be dropped, something like that. Then append that to the SSL header, and we're done with that. That's it. That's it. That's the whole thing for today. I add you a few things from my own site, just only to give you the whole idea, because the given material is like a short pieces. Questions? Questions? No? Questions? Final call? All right, actually. So what I'm gonna do, guys, like when I have time, like right now is very loaded. When I have time, I will create you videos for all the tutorials, all of it. But when I have time, I'm gonna put it online. So for if you guys missed something, you can get back to that. I know that we published that as well on Moodle, but here it is. If you lost your access to the Moodle for any reason, you can find it online as well. If you have any question, I'm here. If you don't, feel free, and I'll see you next week. In the meantime, if you have any question, whatever it is, if you read anything and you didn't get it clearly, you read from online, you read from the material on Moodle, the textbook, whatever it is, and you stuck somewhere, email me. I'll be more than happy to reply back to you. Have a good one, and I'll see you next week.